What's up guys, Josh here, back again with another video. In this video we're going to be talking about the giant beatdown deck. It's not your typical giant beatdown deck because it's got triple spells in it. So it has the giant, it has the guards, it has the hunter, mega minion, the miner, poison, log, and zap to finish off the deck with the 3 spells. And you know, usually you don't see 3 spells within giant decks or any beatdown decks, but I think why it works so well in this deck is because so much spam right now, right? There's so much, you know, you could pretty much play any card or any win condition, and then as long as you throw in bats, spear goblins, and goblin gang, you're pretty much good to go, you know. So this deck is kind of, you know, a way to counter the meta as well, because it has the hunter in it, so obviously it can take out their giant. It has the miner in it and the poison, of course, so it's good for pumps, good for 3 musketeers, good for graveyard. It's good for a lot of decks, and you know, it's even good for hog decks because the hunter can shut down the hog rider in like 2 hits, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I jumped into a ground challenge, played a few matches, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about the deck and like run down how to play it. You know, what's like the strategy behind it, and yeah, let's just jump straight into it. So I feel like of course it's a beatdown deck, so you know you don't want to kind of play too fast, but then again it is 3.3, so you can in a way play fast. And if you look at it like as if it doesn't have the giant in it, so if it just has guards, hunter, mega minion, miner, and then the 3 spells. If you completely ignore the giant for a second, you know, in itself that's a minor chip cycle deck, and then obviously you've got the giant in there as well to make it that beatdown deck. But the reason this deck works so well for me, in my opinion, is just because it's able to counter pretty much any deck. I would say the only deck it struggles against is a golem deck, and you'll see that in a little bit. I actually played a golem deck. It was I think it was a golem rocket deck, and yeah, I got beat 2-1. I'm pretty sure. This deck is actually pretty simple to use, in my opinion. Like, there's not a lot of strategy behind it really. You know, there's the giant. It's a giant beatdown deck, so your main goal would be to get the giant to the tower. And if all else fails, just, you know, use it as a minor chip cycle deck. You know, go minor poison and then defend with hunter, guards, mega minion. Because obviously the mega minion is super defensive and so good right now in the meta. Same as guards, because there's a lot of prints and there's a lot of dark prints around. You know, guards aren't the best for dark prints, but obviously you can pull it with the giant, or you can use the miner. You know, a lot of people don't like, or they don't think about using the miner on defense. But I would say in this deck, I use the miner more on defense than I would on offense. I mean, of course, I use it on the tower as well, but because it's 3.3 elixir, you're able to cycle so quickly that, you know, you can use the miner as a defensive card, and then, you know, 2 or 3 cards later, you'll be straight back to it and you can use it offensively. But a lot of people will, I do see a lot of people kind of, they almost think it's a joke when you use it on defense. Like, I know from my experience, if I use a miner on defense, the opponent will literally, every single time without fail, they will laugh because they think I've made a mistake. But in actuality, miner on defense against, you know, Dark Prince or, you know, a Bandit, you know, any of those kind of charge cards or fast cards that coming out the tower, bridge spam cards, right? The miner's super good on defense, you know. Yeah, and I think a lot of people struggle to use him on defense because they just see him as an offensive card. But if you can kind of get it in your mind that he is just another defensive card in your deck, as well as offense. You know, as every card in this deck can be used for defense and offense in a way, just as any deck. But I think obviously with the miner, people struggle to kind of think about it. You know, they just think he's super offensive, throw him on the tower, and that's his only job. But like I said, from my experience, I always use him on defense against bandits, dark princes to stop the charge. You know, any card coming in basically that I don't really have, because you have the only 2 other cards that hit can target ground, the guards and hunter within this deck. But the problem is with those 2 cards is they're so squishy, especially with the princes. Like, you can use the guards for the normal prince, but you can't really use them against the dark prince. You can if you play it correctly. You can surround the dark prince with the guards, but you know, obviously he has a 360 splash damage of charge, so guards are usually going to be taken out in 2 shots. So then you have to use your hunter, and then you might overextend, and it can get tricky. But if you use the miner on defense, I'm pretty sure the miner, as long as you negate the charge, the Miner can take out the Dark Prince on defense. So just remember to use if you're going to try this deck, just remember to use the Miner on defense, you know, as much as you can, and obviously on offense as much as you can. But don't rely on it on offense as much, because obviously that's what your Giant's for. I would say your main push of inside the deck would be Giant, Mega Minion, Miner, of course, or you could do Giant, Mega Minion, Hunter, or Giant, Hunter, Miner, you know, any 3 of those variations. And then obviously every single card, you know, Guards, Hunter, Mega Minion, Miner, all defensive cards inside the deck. And then obviously to round the deck off, you've got triple spells. And this is why I'm showing you this deck, because I just feel like it counters so much in the meta right now. Like I said, it counters the Graveyard, 3 Musketeers, it counters other Giant decks. You know, that Giant spam deck that I showed you counters that one. Because obviously it has the Zap for the Bats and the Spear Goblins, and then it has the Log for the Goblin Gang. You know, and I would say Giant Poison is another push that you could go in with. Giant Poison Miner or Giant Poison Mega Minion. There's so many different things you can do with this deck, and because it's 3.3, you can pretty much, by the time if you place a Giant in the back, by the time it's got to the bridge, you can put another Giant at the bridge and just overwhelm your opponent and get 2 Giants down, and then they're kind of freaking out. They don't know what to do. And yeah, I just think if you're going to play this deck, you kind of have to get into the mentality like it's not actually a real kind of Giant Beatdown deck, because it's so cheap. You know, when you usually play Giant Beatdown decks, you usually see them within the like anywhere from like 3.6 or 3.5 onwards. So this is kind of a cheaper version of Giant Beatdown, which you don't usually see. But it has cards like the Hunter. So good on defense. You know, people underestimate the Hunter. It is quite squishy. I think it personally needs a buff. I think it needs a little bit more health, maybe, you know, 2 or 3% more health. I don't really know how they could do it. I could talk about that in another video, to be honest, because I could, you know, there's so many different things I would want to do with a Hunter. But anyway, I digress. I just think that he's so good on defense, and people underestimate how good he is on defense. I'm pretty sure he can take out a Golem in 10 hits, or not 10 hits, 6 or 7 or 8. It's somewhere in that region. It's from 6 to 10, definitely. It can take a Golem out, you know, and as long as you have cards to kind of, you know, the Mega Minion and the Guards and the Miner to stop whatever else he has behind the Golem, like whether that be a Dark Prince, whether that be a Dragon, whether that be a Lumberjack, you know, any card that they play behind the Golem, as long as you defend the Hunter, Golem deck shouldn't be a problem. You know, your hardest matchup will probably be P.E.K.K.A, because obviously, you know, P.E.K.K.A shuts down the Giant. But don't just assume that because they're playing P.E.K.K.A that it's a loss. A lot of people think that playing Giant against P.E.K.K.A is immediate loss. I disagree. I think you can actually, I think it's actually 50-50 in a P.E.K.K.A matchup. You know, and every time I play a Giant and someone laughs, or the opponent laughs because they have a P.E.K.K.A and they think, oh, it's an easy win, don't let that get to you. You know, you got to have the mindset that, you know, if you come up against the P.E.K.K.A deck, it's 50-50, in my opinion. Because it cycles so quickly. If you put a Giant in the back and then they counter with a P.E.K.K.A in the back, by the time the Giant gets to the bridge, like I said earlier, you could probably cycle and put a Giant in the other lane, and then they won't have enough elixir because they're trying to defend the left side super heavy. One other thing I would say about this deck is that probably one of its weaknesses is the triple spells, but obviously it's tricky because it's a strength and a weakness in a way. And obviously its strength is that you can take out, you know, a lot of the spam that's in the meta right now, but obviously a weakness is that you only have 5 troops, so you know, and 3 spells. So it can get kind of tricky. Your starting hands can get tricky. You know, if you have the Poison, the Log, the Miner, the Zap in the same starting hand, I would kind of suggest that you kind of wait to see what the opponent does, and then don't use your Miner. I would say don't throw a Miner on a tower because they could just tornado. I would say just start off with either a Log or a Zap on the tower, possibly a Zap, because then you can say, if they have Goblin Barrel, you can save the Log for the Goblin Barrel. Always be careful if you're using Log as your first card to kind of cycle. Be careful of the Goblin Barrel, but obviously you do have Guards and you do have Zap, so you know, Log bait shouldn't be a problem with this deck at all. Like I said, I think the hardest matchup would probably be either Golem or P.E.K.K.A. Just because they have, because of the elixir difference. You know, most of those decks cost 4 point, O and above, you know, so they can just build up a massive push once they know the cards that you have. So just be careful with those decks. Make sure you use the Hunter on defense against the Golem and the P.E.K.K.A. and then use the guards to stop the supporting troops behind it. And yeah, that's the deck, guys. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Let me know if you think you could improve the deck. I personally think that you could probably improve this deck in a couple ways. I'm gonna personally try it without the zap. I'm gonna throw in maybe some bats, maybe some spear goblins, you know, to get that little bit of element of spam in it again. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a thumbs up in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought of the deck down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.